Hey, how's it going, everyone? Pack like TCG here. Today I'm going to be going over a deck that I ended up taking to locals and going 4-0 with. So I want to make a quick disclaimer. I know it's been quite a while since I made a video, but I do have a video that is coming out within the week trying to explain why I have had a lack of videos. I'm just currently editing that, and it should be out very shortly. And it essentially is like, hey, I haven't been making content, here's why, so keep an eye out for that. The channel's not dead. We are still making content. It's just coming out in increments, especially with rotation coming soon. That's what I'm primarily going to be interested in testing for, because my next tournament is actually in that format. And outside of that, I really can't attend cups or challenges because it's on a weekend, and I don't have weekends off at where I currently work. But I do have locals, which I will say my locals is pretty stacked. We have really, really good newer players and players that have made multiple day twos at regionals. So we'll went into the mindset of me playing this deck. I've been toying with this kind of concept for a minute. I remember seeing the Cornerstone Noivern deck from, I want to say it was maybe Baltimore or one of the other regionals that was earlier in this season, where it was just a really, really cool deck. And I knew that Mimikyu and Cornerstone are both very strong cards currently in this format. And I wanted to take advantage of decks either just not knowing how to play against it, or just the surprise factor of it not being a wall deck. It's actually an attacking wall deck. I will fix one card. I completely didn't even realize that that count was off just a little bit. But this is the 60 I ended up using to go 4-0 at my locals. I expected a lot of Charizard, because there was a lot of Charizard the weeks prior, and I just wanted to be able to have to test out this kind of theory to see if it would be worth bringing to like a cup or challenge moving forward, see how fast you could end games, or see exactly if you went into a meta where Gardevoir wasn't existent or multiple clones wasn't a thing, how this deck would do. So how do you play this deck, and what is the full list? So clearly we can see a 3/3 Ogerpon Mimikyu. I couldn't decide on whether I liked 4 Mimikyu or 4 Ogerpon. They're both really, really good as multiples. I would say if you expect heavy Iron Thorns with triple Cologne or double Cologne Silene, I would definitely try to go for 4 Mimikyu. If not, like 4 Mimikyu, 2 Cornerstone. If not, I really respect and like the 3/3 split. It is very strong. You still have multiples of both of them if you would like, depending on your matchup. And 3 Cornerstone immediately wins you the Charizard matchup if they play one single copy of Cologne. Cornerstone typically is your main attacker. The reason why this deck works is because Cornerstone and Mimikyu both have abilities that are very strong. The ability is prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon. They have an ability. About 90% of the meta right now with their Pokemon have abilities. Charizard has Infernal Rain. Miraidon has Tandem Unit. Gardevoir also has Psychic Embrace, even though the mini Pokemon don't really have abilities. You can deal with them in the long run, and there is a strategy I will go into on how to deal with it with this specific build. What does this deck struggle with? Well, decks that can just immediately go around Mimikyu and Cornerstone that you can outload up either one of these fast enough for. Mimikyu has an ability, Safeguard. We've seen this before, reprinted multiple times. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon EX and V, and the attack just does 70 damage to your opponent's active, which is really, really good. We have a copy of Rotom V just for consistency. I added it the night before just because I wanted to test it out, and it actually worked, believe it or not. None of my opponents were able to take the Rotom out before I pennied it, because it was mainly in there for a Forest Sealstone target. And then they'd try to use Dusclops or Dusknoir to kill the Cornerstones, or they just didn't have the pieces immediately to take care of the Rotom, therefore just immediately get pennied off the board, and then they just have all the walls to deal with. One Blood Moon for late game Lost City plays on Pokemon that are a little problematic, which is where the Gardevoir matchup kind of gets a little weird. This card kind of helps, and then Wellspring Ogerpon, which I will say won 3 of my rounds, just because this card accelerates your win condition. With Cornerstone and Mimikyu only doing a max of like 140 to 70 damage, Wellspring allows you to sit there, spread, just keep hitting Pokemon after you take your first knockout. If you, per se, hit Charizard twice, hit Pidgeot twice, or hit another EX Pokemon that isn't a Terra twice, you can immediately go boss up the Charizard, or you have to hit the Charizard technically a couple times with Mimikyu. And then all you got to do is go, okay, Wellspring, double turbo, 100, 120 snipe, or 80, 100, depending on how you ended up getting the energies. Sometimes you can go crystal, attach, pass, depending on how bad their setup is, or if they don't play switch or Turo, which most times they won't even think about because they're sitting there locked completely. Then you can sit there, sob for 20 damage, lock up one of the Pokemon, and the next turn go boss, attach a Torrential Pump for the full effect. This accelerates games. This helps against Gardevoir turn 1 if they don't know that you're playing this combo with the Sparkling Crystal, and then you can just snipe 2 rolls immediately. Going into the trainer cards, it will be a little bit weird. One card I want to discuss is Wallace. So this card I looked at because I was trying to find a good card that could draw you multiple cards, and I didn't like Horus because, yes, Horus does look at the top 5, you lost some too, and I don't like losing resources like that. I like keeping my pieces. Wallace and Rika, I think it's Rika, ended up sticking out, which Rika ended up getting a day 2 with Alessandro Carmascoli. He's a very, very well-known controller stall player. But Rika looked at the top 4, and you selected 2 and put 2 in the bottom. I like seeing my resources still, and I felt like a guaranteed draw 3 was good. Also, there is a little bit of a verbiage that I want to talk about with Wallace that is a little bit of a loophole that I feel like Pokemon should or needs to address when it comes to future cards. So Wallace simply says draw 3 cards. Your opponent may draw a card. If they do, draw 1 more card. So what does this mean for Wallace? Well, what you can do is you can draw 3 cards and then ask your opponent with certain verbiage of, would you like to draw a card? You don't have to tell them the penalty. You don't have to tell them anything else about the card. You can just simply ask, would you like to draw a card? If your opponent doesn't read the card and accepts, the second that they accept, you can draw a card. And then your opponent's like, whoa, wait, why did you just draw an extra card? And then you show them Wallace, and then they just don't let you do it again. Sometimes, more times than none, I've actually encountered it when I played Wallace. There was only one time, and that was in my first round, where my opponents had no idea what Wallace did, and then word came out that Wallace is an opponent-based card, so you can either see 3 or 4 cards guaranteed, and it's a really, really fun card to play. And I'm super happy I managed to get a placement on the board with Wallace. One thing to note is out of the 8 times I played it, 3 times my opponents let me draw, 2 of them intentionally knowing what Wallace did just because they wanted to dig for their canceling cologne or other combo pieces to potentially draw into it. And I only got judged, I think, once the entire event. Nobody Iono'd because they were just attempting to dig and didn't realize or didn't know how to play the matchup. I don't blame them for not knowing how to play the matchup. This is not a deck you ever see. You expect to see control, and then by that point, you're like, oh, let's Iono. Forest Seal Storm to pair with Rotom. This is also wrong. It was 1 Town Store, 2 Lost City, so I could deal with Gardevoir because I knew Gardevoir was also going to be a deck that existed. And the way to beat that is you take out Screamtail and you take out Drifloon under Lost City via Mimikyu. A card to also consider in here would be Lost Vacuum. So if you throw up a Cornerstone with a Bravery Charm and then go in with Drifloon, if you go Lost Vacuum, Lost City, Lost Vacuum, there goes the Drifloon immediately. The only thing they have to deal with in the other Cornerstone now is Screamtail. So then when the Screamtail comes down, you just go, okay, cool. Blood Moon or Saluna take the knockout. They're at 3 prizes. They don't have a way to deal with the next Cornerstone because everything else in their deck has an ability. So they're going to go down to 1 prize, sit there, potentially spread with Monkey Dory, but that doesn't do anything when I have 3 pennies and they only have so many energies. And I will just eventually start taking knockouts and get there, or just start stop blocking, which is really, really funny. 4 Nest Balls to search pretty much everything in the deck, along with the Buddy Buddy. I just wanted another way to find out multiple Mimikyus, just so I didn't break, and the Buddy Buddy Poffin worked. 1 copy of Earth the Vessel to find the energy, 4 Arvin, it's the backbone on the deck outside of Wallace. 4 Pokegear, 1 Heavy Ball, 1 Counter Catcher. Counter Catcher I never played once, just because if your opponent doesn't play the game, then the card sucks. But it is still good to have in the deck. 2 Boss, 3 Penny. I debated actually 4 Penny or a Pal Pad after this event, because it is just such a strong card. 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Iono, 1 Turbo Energize. This is a card that I really wanted to play multiple times, but I'd always get stuck with Rotom, Forest Seal Stone in the active spot, or I'd already slammed down a Bravery Charm, because at that point, like, if I know my opponent isn't playing cards to beat my deck, or only play a single copy of Canceling Clone, if I just drop the other Pokemon, then there's nothing that they can do. But this card is worth considering in staying in the deck. 1 Switch Card, cards busted in here. 3 copies of Colorless Tenacity. This is something that a lot of people kind of questioned when they saw the list in my friend group. Colorless Tenacity is also another backbone of the deck. It pretty much opens up every single combo that you can get. It allows Townstar to get Forest Seal Stone plus 1 of your energies in order to just essentially start going. If you miss your turn 1 attachment going second, depending on the matchup, it can get really dire, especially against Gardevoir. Like, the Turbo Energize combo is even important going into Gardevoir, because you just want to be able to get out as many energies as you can to start combating these. So Colorless is a very, very good card in here. 2 Bravery Charm and 1 Sparkling Crystal. When the Terra Pokemon this card is attached uses an attack, the attack cost is 1 energy less. It just essentially allows you to Torrential Pump for a double turbo, and even use Cornerstone turn 1 for a Demolish, which is another way you can deal with Gardevoir just easily by going Lost City into a Sparkling Crystal double turbo Cornerstone. And it is it's a really, really cool combo that I genuinely enjoyed playing. I played 3 double turbo just because when you have Water Pond and Cornerstone as your backbone, and Mimikyu only takes 2 energy, excuse me, you can use Turbo Energize to get the energies on Mimikyu, or just hide behind the Mimikyu, attach. 3 Psychic, 3 Fighting felt fine to me. Never missed having more or less of either. And then 2 copies of Mist Energy. That actually came to use against Miraidon. I completely forgot that they could attack with Mew, and then I drew in the Mist Energy and immediately slammed it on the Mimikyu, and they can no longer genome hacking for the Mimikyu. So I want to go over one game. I'm going to like ×2 speed it or something, because I know games can be long and drawn out, but I want to show you guys pretty much how the deck functions and how to approach a matchup if it is good. Actually allowed me to go first. I was actually, if you see the camera, a little bit scared, because I didn't know if this was Roaring Moon or not, because if they had the pieces to go Frenzied Gouging turn 1, I actually lost the game because I didn't get a Mist Energy. And I didn't have a Pokemon in hand to put down, or anything in the prize cards after using my Heavy Ball. So all I could do is attach and pass. So when it comes to my hand, you could clearly see that I had a turn 2 hand, not a turn 1 hand. And there is a reason for me going Arvin for Forest Seal Stone Rotom into Vessel Energy. So this is just because I wanted to have an out to attack during the next turn and get as many energy on the board as I possibly can, because if this is Roaring Moon, they can just, well, spam out energies, they can get the Baby Moon out, and then things start to get a little bit problematic. But as we can see here, it kind of looks like a little bit of a pile. I have no idea what that Dialga even did. I had to read it multiple times to even see exactly what it could do. But the Arvin play for the Forest Seal Stone Rotom, instead of attacking here, I felt like that I was under no pressure yet, just because I don't know how many decks play Darkrai. I didn't even know if Roaring Moon played Darkrai. I've seen it as a 1/1 line. I didn't know if it was just Turbo Darkrai. I didn't know if it could have been the Loyal 3. So I felt safe going into the Rotom Forest Seal Stone play instead of just Nest Ball for a Cornerstone or a third Mimikyu, but also my hand wasn't the greatest, and I would rather prefer to draw cards right off the bat. My opponent starts doing a lot. They go Switch, Attach, Benchless Dialga that searches your deck for 2 cards and puts them on top in any order you like, which was really, really interesting to see. But I don't think it's any good, and it seems very slow as opposed to just playing like a copy of Cypher Maniac. But my hand now seems pretty good. I'm still convinced that this could be something along the lines of Turbo Darkrai with just some shenanigans. So I bench Cornerstone, slap down a double Turbo, thinking I'm safe because I can just Sparkling Crystal or attach a Fighting next turn. And then I see a Hoopa EX with a Sparkling Crystal, and I'm like, well, now I have to find Bravery Charm if I want to slam down another energy, and then this Mimikyu on the bench can't actually attack. The Dialga, you actually start seeing get energy and then a Turbo Energize hits, and at this point I'm like, oh crap, they can just Turbo Energize onto the Orthworm, and then I'm in trouble. But what I have in hand is Lost City, so what this would allow me to do right now is take out the Dialga and Lost City it immediately, never seeing that one prize viability again. So there you see the Pokegear. I had Colress, Boss, and I believe Arven was the other card, or Wallace. It was Wallace. I chose Boss because when this Dialga goes down, I don't want them hiding behind one of their 2 prizers and loading up this Orthworm, which, again, for some reason, I have no idea why they didn't Turbo Energize onto it over Hoopa, because Hoopa's not going to really make an impact in this game. I get the Bravery Charm here with the Arven, because I still wanted to be able to find the Bravery Charm with the off chance there's some weird shenanigans that they could do to spread 10. Like, I don't know if there was a Hoopa involved, or not a Hoopa, a Halucha. So I have no idea what I'm playing against. All I know is I wanted to get rid of the 1 prize liabilities, cover all my grounds, keep the boss for if they don't put down or accelerate energy somehow to this Orthworm. I don't know if there could be like a Thornton Matang play, or if there's any way, shape, or form that this Orthworm could get set up in 1 turn. Another play I was also considering was hitting this Hoopa, maybe bossing up the bench Orthworm, and then bossing up the Hoopa again and using Water Pond to take both the knockouts and take 3 prize cards and put them both in the Lost Zone, so I don't have to deal with either one of them. And then the Brute Bonnet actually hits the board, and I'm like, well, that thing can poison and it can attack if they play the right amount of cards. I don't know if they play Sada. I don't know exactly what this deck is, so I have no idea what to expect. All I know is I'm going to play it as I see it, and as I see it, there is a lot of Pokemon with abilities. There's a lot of EX Pokemon. So Mimikyu and Cornerstone seem decent. And then they retreat to the Orthworm physically, which was super, super weird. And I'm explaining here, I'm like, well, this Hoopa can't actually knock me out unless I have like a Lost Vacuum. So with this Pokegear, I'm just going to grab Iono, because my hand is dead. But as you'll see, I'll never use the Iono, because my opponent's not doing anything. So I'll just sit here and just keep attacking until they do something so that I could actually find other cards. So it's at this point, I'm like, okay, I have Cornerstone, I have a Mimikyu, I'm not too scared about anything right now. The Hoopa with the Sparkling Crystal is a little tedious. I don't want a Roaring Moon to come in and just punch me in the face with a Frenzied Gouging, so I kind of want to find a Mist Energy, but I also don't because I don't really care. And then I end up knocking out the Orthworm, putting in the Lost Zone, and now I've reached 4 prizes, so now I could try to attempt to do the spread Water Ogre Pond play. They bench Weird Ear on their last turn, which is really peculiar because that thing also has an ability and they can't really do anything with that right now. Me playing with Ality. So they attach a Psychic Energy to the Roaring Moon, and they don't play Sada, so I'm a little convinced right now that they may or may not play Sada. There might be Dark Patches involved, along with multiple switches. I'm not completely sure, but like I said, I'm just playing it as I see it. I see a bunch of abilities and a bunch of EX Pokemon, so I'm just going to assume as long as I load up a Cornerstone and 2 Mimikyus, I am safe. But that Hoopa does make some problematic plays, because if I attach 1 more energy to the Mimikyu, a simple boss would actually knock out the Cornerstone, which would eliminate a win condition down the line to take knockouts doing 140. I wouldn't be able to go Sparkling Crystal Water Pond. So it's a little bit annoying. And then I see the Sada, and I'm like, well, the Brute Bonnet can attack. That's a little annoying. And the Frenzied Gouging can come in, which I'm not too worried about because it would knock itself out. And then I could safely go into the Water Pond play because I could just immediately boss up this Brute Bonnet and hit it. So then they go Switch Cart, heal off the Roaring Moon. Not that it does anything. They're just trying to get poison this Mimikyu and have it die to poison. And then I top deck my Switch Cart, which in my mind I'm like, should I Switch Cart Penny? Should I Switch Cart Boss? bring up the Brute Bonnet, hit it for 140 so that I could snipe it with Water Pond. Like, I'm not quite sure what to do in this situation, so I just go for the safest play of switch card Penny because I still want to attack, and I don't want to attack the Cornerstone because I don't want a Dark Energy to just swing for 250 out of nowhere. I don't want to see a Lost Vacuum or anything. So I just hit the Hooper for 70 and say, okay, let's see how your next turn plays out. Do you have a way around this or do you not? I'm going to try and target the Brute Bonnet this turn now because there are 2 energies on that thing. So if they miss the attachment, which they just eliminated the out to Sada by using Super Rod here, putting all the energies back. So I'm sitting here like, okay, so now they have to raw draw on energy, or they have to wait until they switch card again, manually retreat, and Sada in order to even get energies on the board for this Brute Bonnet. They're just sitting here poisoning and hoping that I just don't have an out here, which is completely fine. I did just burn a switch card and a penny, so the likeliness of having another one is pretty low. And at this point, I go boss, hit the Brute Bonnet, attach to the Mimikyu, because now I'm pretty confident my lone Mimikyu, if this one in the active dies, for one, it eliminates 2 energy, so it's going back to 200 damage. So I'm not too concerned because I know they're not going to go attach Dark Retreat because for one, they just physically can't do that right now unless they have like manual attach or Latias plus E-switch or just something along the lines of that. And then they use switch and I'm like, oh no, do they have it? And then they go into the Darkrai V-Star, which I'm pretty sure they completely forgot about Mimikyu having Safeguard. Maybe not, or maybe they forgot about Cornerstone's ability. I'm not completely sure what was going on here. And then they go Counter Catcher up the Cornerstone, and I'm like, yeah, they more than likely forgot. So I'm like, oh, I need a boss, and then I can take the knockout with Demolish on Cornerstone, Lost Zone the Brute Bonnet, and then there's nothing that they can do that I can clearly see in their deck list, and they just concede. Like I said, I think they genuinely just forgot that Cornerstone had an ability that they couldn't go through.